Okay, hi, this is Jenny with Boss Moves, and I have Julie here. Julie, introduce yourself.
Hi, so my name is Julie, and I am a senior editor writer at a community college in Maryland, and that's within the marketing department. And beyond that title, I like to consider myself a multi potentialite, which is a term I just learned, which is like, as soon as I read it, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. So it's a person with many different interests and creative pursuits. So it's somebody who has diverse interests, rapid learning. You can take different ideas and kind of put them together. And then adaptability too, just kind of moving along and adjusting as things go. So um,
So
I wish I
basically,
had.
they try to put you into a box with a label, but you could go pretty much anywhere and you do.
Yeah,
I
yeah. Yep. And when you do
love it.
think that way, finding your parachute in college when they used to give you that what color is your parachute book, it was kind of hard to I could never figure out what color it was. I was all of them. So, or most of them. So,
I don't know if I know that book. Tell me about it. What are the colors representing?
I don't know. I don't remember, but it was the rainbow of the parachute on the front of the book, and then it'd say,
Huh.
"What color are you?" And it would say, "You fall under this or that." And yeah, I just couldn't. It was
You're
a
just all
long
the
time.
colors?
Yeah, it was just kind of like, "Oh, you're a lot of this, you're a lot of that," and it was, I would leave the career center just going like, "All right, I don't have a parachute. I don't know," but I was a parachute, so
So tell me, how is that multi what?
potential.
Position potentialite. How has that affected your career?
Yeah, so it's kind of led me all around. So I'm not somebody whose, dad and uncles were like, "Oh, you're going to come work over here with us after graduation," or parents who were kind of guiding my career. It wasn't like that. It was more like my paternal grandmother telling me, "If you go to college and you get straight A's at a community college, I'll pay for you to get your degree at the state college, which is University of Maryland." And so I think like once she said that, I kind of like my brain kind of clicked on like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing, kind of figuring things out. But she just told me, do what you love. And that was kind of like a double sided, because you can go into a career because you want to get paid well and you're in the hot career, and a lot of people choose that, and I think that's great for them. But for me, I took it very to heart, and I since then I've just always put my heart into everything that I do work wise. So that's impacted my career. I think it's different for me meeting coworkers. Like I'll freelance and it's just me and the client and we're really vibing off of each other, and then I'll work in an office environment and everybody doesn't necessarily, that's not their passion. So but then there are people who are too. So it's just kind of a broad experience, which I'm happy to share with you. It's a
Yeah. Um, there's so many directions I could go in with this. It's going to
exactly,
be an
sorry,
interesting
I will not
conversation.
keep us on track.
No, I love that. We don't need to stay on track. There's no track. Um, but yeah, so then what do you love? What inspires and motivates you?
I have discovered over the years that I really love, I think the mission is really important to me. And I know a lot of people say that, but I think like I found myself drawn to nonprofits and higher education. And particularly now working at a community college just really connects with me, because I know I get the opportunity to interview students who like me, like some of them didn't even think the college was for them. It was never discussed in their home, and they kind of are paying for it themselves, which wasn't my case. But they really get in there and they achieve things, and um, I don't know. I just feel like I'm addicted to that hope. I love like hearing their stories and like what they're doing with their lives. Like they're doing it and they're doing it with support, but it's like um, for people who don't necessarily have. I say I can't even not promote where I work because I love the mission so much, and that's why I went back to working in an office, because I was freelancing and staying home with the kids. And so when I went back to work, I was freelancing for this community college, and a full-time senior editor position opened up, and I applied. So So it's been great. Yeah. Did I answer
So
your question or did I take us around?
I don't even remember the question. So that's
Yeah.
where we're at. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's really interesting. I feel like, um, uh, having that sense of purpose is cool. And it's interesting that, here you are at sort of a more mature phase of your career, working with people who are just beginning to figure theirs out
Mhm.
and seeing that, like the big unknown and what direction they're going in and how the college is really creating that path forward. So that gives me a question. You have a college degree?
Mhm.
What
I've
is it in?
so I have a bachelor's in English and American Lit, and then I have a master's in management with a marketing specialization.
So you've really actually kind of stayed in the lane a bit from where like with college, and you still sort of kind of do that thing. Is that correct?
Kind of, yeah. When I got my English degree, nobody told me it was like pin the tail on the donkey, and they put the thing around,
Yeah.
so I
And
spun you
you're
around and said, "Go find a job later." And when I graduated, there was just kind of like there were no jobs available really, and
what year was that?
a lady never tells. It was
Oh,
like
yeah, I
2000.
don't age
No, it
you.
was like 2000. So there was like a crash around that. I don't know what happened, but there was a lot going on,
Hmm.
and it was hard to find jobs as easily. So especially because everybody who did get good jobs were computer programmers and had followed kind of that line. I do know there are English majors who began work right away, but for me, it was kind of it didn't happen like that. So.
Did you work in college in the arena of your degree field, or did you graduate without direct experience in your degree field?
Yeah. I did work for a nonprofit. I wrote magazine articles, so that was fun. I got to interview doctors about gastroenterological health. It was something I knew
Exciting.
nothing about, but I loved that because I could talk to these experts and then really humanize what they had to say and kind of break it down so that anybody in a waiting room or something could read the magazine and learn something in a way that wouldn't kind of turn them off because of all the terminology, or like, how can I break this down and make it
Right.
relevant to them? But I worked at a restaurant. So that didn't really at all. And this one girl got hired, like I had been there for a while and I was waiting tables and I was bartending and hostessing and doing whatever needed to be done. And it was a small family restaurant, but because I knew the family after working there for a while, like it just felt like my home almost. That was like a centering place for me. And this girl came in and she started doing the cards for the table, like saying like, try this drink or special, or, like, and using like this really cheesy, like clip art at the time.
Hmm.
Like, and I was like, I want to do that. So like, I think you asked what excites me. And I think it's when I'm given the freedom to grow and try new things. So the one of the restaurant owners, there were two brothers. One of them was like, yep, you know what? Work on our website, create our website for us. You can design these things. You can do the layout for our catering book. And so I did all that stuff, and the menus. I also edited the menus, and two of the brothers' kids' names were in there. Like it was like Pasha's favorite pasta. So then I like made Bob X kebabs. So his other son had a thing named after him. So I would just do something like that, but just
Equal
try to like,
opportunity. Yeah.
yeah, I wanted everybody to feel good, like they were part of the family business. But
Menu.
yeah,
Oh,
but
that's so funny.
yeah,
Uh,
so it wasn't related. And then I worked at a used bookstore coffee shop, and that paid like $5 an hour. And yeah,
minimum wage at the time, right?
yeah, it was about,
So,
yeah, it was like,
yeah,
I think they paid me $5.50, which I was like,
mine was my first paycheck job. My minimum wage job was 5.15 an hour, and it
yeah,
was at NASA. I was being way underpaid for what I was doing, but
that's
um,
amazing.
yeah, I had like a high school um, kind of internship, if you will. Like I got to leave school early and go, and
Hmm.
I went to Eleanor Roosevelt, was right near Goddard, and I would go in and edit scientific documents. So I understand, relate to the gastroenterological stuff because the documents I was editing I did not understand.
Yeah.
Maybe about 6 months in, it was an atmospheric sample study. It was pretty intense. But anyhow, um, so it's interesting you said, waiting tables didn't really relate to what you do. But then somewhere in there, you found your way into doing something for them that totally relates.
Hmm.
So you took, and this is actually, so just a little bit of insight with Boss Moves. I kind of created it as like a place where you can help learn your path and learn other people's experiences. Maybe there's some insights or things that motivate you, inspiration, or commiseration, whatever it is. But my hope is that somewhere along the way, somebody gets inspired to grow their career or make a difference somewhere. And my daughter works for a company, and I'm like, why don't you try to do some sales for them, try to get more events, and you know, make some suggestions. And she's not sure they're going to take it. And I'm like, this is how you get into the things. You don't know which thing is going to become your career, but you saw this little thing and you're like, I would like to design this. And next thing you know, and you can design our website and our menus and all this stuff. And a little bit of background, Julie has designed some things for me, and she's probably going to help me do my intro. So hopefully by the time these are published, my intro will be there. But that's a funny thing is I feel like just knowing you a little bit, I know that you really are, first of all, high energy, passionate about what
Yeah.
you do,
I'm trying
and
to
very
hold that.
clear vision, very clear vision. Even though there's a part of you that's totally like going in all these directions, there's actually, I think, a really clear, you know, path forward. I guess my question for you is, so you got your degree in English, didn't know where you were going. I guess during college you were doing the waiting tables.
Hmm.
What was your first job that was like your first professional job,
Oh, oh, I had a good first job, which was hauling bricks for my neighbor whose house burned down. And he
Oh,
paid, I was like 11 years old, and my cousin was like 14, and he paid us like $4, $3 an hour, $4 an hour. And we were like moving asbestos. And I was like, this is going to like wreck my body. What am I doing? So finally, I kind of stood up for us because I was just like, this isn't healthy. Like, we shouldn't be doing this. So we didn't do that for
so
long.
you
But
knew you knew it at 11 years old that something wasn't right about the asbestos.
eventually, yeah, yeah. It didn't take too long, but it was, I
This
liked
guy's running
working.
a racket. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He was a charmer, that guy. He could get things done. So, but it was an opportunity. It felt fun. It felt like a lot of money at the time when you're not
Oh, sure.
doing anything. So, um,
And do you ever wonder, because I was just telling someone my story of when I was 15, I babysat and they said they would pay me $30 a day for their 8 hour day job. And, that equates to around $5 an hour, maybe a little less, but minimum wage back then was 5.15. So I took it, not realizing that they were going to be gone 11 to 12 hours a day. And now I was making like $3 an hour. And I always, I was sort of making the joke that like, where were my parents to help me advocate for myself? So
yeah.
you took this asbestos moving job. Did your parents have anything to say, or were they just like, just glad my kid's out there being busy? It's the 90s or 80s,
Oh,
whatever it
well,
was.
yeah. Actually, one thing I wrote down was illegal now was just called the 80s back then.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of us,
It was normal.
I'm 49 and probably on the young end of the Gen X. And looking back, there was a lot of things that were probably really wrong that were happening back then. So, but out of out after that job, did you work in high school at all?
Yes. Yeah. So
What'd you
then I
do?
worked at a bagel place, getting up at like 6 a.m. and on the weekend and going there. And that was like it was minimum wage. And then the shoe store down the street or in the same mall, like at the other end, was hiring. So I got a job there instead. And that was commission based. That's where I learned I don't like sales.
Okay.
I didn't care about it. I wanted to help people. I would help the people who were looking for a bargain for their kids' shoes, or the woman who was looking at clearance and we didn't have every single
Even though it
size.
probably
I'm
paid
sitting
you
there
less.
pulling them apart and spending
Yeah.
all my time with her. And then there was this guy who worked there. He was also high school aged, and he would just kind of like shark out the men's shoe area because you could sell Rockports and they were $65 back then. They were 100. Maybe they were 100 back then even.
Wow.
So they'd be like $1 million now.
I never
Inflation.
heard of them, which tells you where my range was.
Yeah, they're kind of like old man shoes. But
That's great.
like comfortable old man shoes, but I was like, I don't really care about the, the sales part of it. Like I want to help people.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I do think that some of these, what I'll call the more menial jobs, when you're, early in your career and you're doing these jobs, part of what they are doing is helping you learn what you don't like as much as what you do
Oh yeah.
like. So you kind of get a better sense of that. Um, of those jobs that you've talked about so far, are there any that you feel, besides the obvious with the creating the menu and the website, are there any skills that you feel translate to what you do today that that or skills or awareness of yourself that you bring to today with your
Um,
career?
I think everybody should wait tables. I mean, everybody. I think it should be a class in college, in high school, where everybody learns what it's like to work with the public, to work as a team when you're stressed out. And, you've got to get everything done and you've got to look calm while you're doing it. One of the jobs that I did have that I didn't mention was working at, do you remember it was called, it doesn't really matter, but it was like they sold Lito's Pizza there, Fireside. I
Oh
think
yeah. Mhm.
I was a hostess there. And one time it was empty and I was sitting down and I was folding the napkins and the manager came over and said, you can't sit down in the dining room. Nobody can see you resting. You need to be here to work. And that stuck with me because I would later, when I was managing a restaurant, I ended up managing the restaurant I was at college. It's a whole mess. But I would see people and I was like, you can't, and it does make sense because people, they're going there because they want to be waited on, honestly. I mean, back in the day, I think now everything's so fast casual, but this restaurant has white tablecloths, fresh flowers, that kind of thing. Both of them were. So it's like, keep working.
Training
Stay calm.
experience, yeah.
I think I got addicted to that adrenaline. And I think that's what why I like marketing and I like kind of like dealing with a job I'll get into later. Like there was a lot with change management. Like we're going to change the website. Okay, so write something, make it sound great. My boss would just come in and say like, everybody's benefits are taking away. Make it sound snazzy or something, make it sizzle. Bye. And it's like, you have 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, I just sat down. Okay. Not that, but it was just really trying to bring out the positives of like why this change is happening, how it impacts you. And we did a lot of that. So I feel like those short-term burst things, like where we're in an environment where everything's due instant now, I kind of.
That's waiting tables. That's
waiting tables.
Yeah.
You're in the weeds, and yeah. So
Well,
I don't take very much personally at all. Like, if somebody's stressed out and they kind of hulk out, or if I'm kind of like on deadline and then, I can say like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I have time for you now. I was just in the zone. So.
Right. Well, and I definitely think, waiting tables can be very fast paced. The amount you earn can really be affected by how professional you are and how good you do each day. And sometimes it's not at all based on that. And it's funny you mentioned the sitting in the dining room thing. I always, like if you're walking through a restaurant, when I worked at a restaurant, if a customer was coming, I always stood back and let them go first. And I always think it's kind of funny. Like it doesn't upset me, but I think it's kind of funny when an employee is like, "Get out of my way! I'm going first," and you're like, "Okay." But if they're carrying a heavy tray, I kind of get it, and I'll always like stand back. But like those are the funny things where I think if I was a manager at a restaurant, I would say always let the customer go 1st. Always make sure they're comfortable and blah 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 blah.
We might be
I'm
old
also,
school though.
we might be. I mean, I've spilled whole beers in people's laps, so like I'm not saying I've given everyone the perfect experience unless someone really has a fetish for that.
Yeah.
But so
Well,
And you
just real quick.
mentioned,
Sorry,
yeah.
I went to Fogo de Chao like not too long ago, and I like went to the restroom or something, and I was walking back, and the waiter stopped, and he's like, "After you," and I'm like, "After you, after you," and I'm like, "This isn't the restaurant worker and me coming out." I'm like, "We're gonna be here all day." I was like, "I'll just go, thank you," But it's so
You gave
funny.
in, right?
Yeah, like I'm such a gentle woman. Like
That's
opening
so
doors,
funny.
holding doors, running ahead, that kind of thing. Anyway, that's not work related, but it does impact your personality. And I think everybody
I
should.
do think that's an interesting thing too, though, because I sort of wonder sometimes, especially with women, I think we are very supportive and nurturing of others, considerate of others. We,
Oh, yeah.
operate in a certain way. And I'm not saying men don't do that. I can't, speak to every situation. But I think that women are very naturally very aware of those things. Like I might go into, I don't want to be the person who fetches the water and the coffee for a meeting, but I might go into a meeting and notice that nobody fetched it, and meanwhile the guys probably aren't even thinking about that at all.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there's things like that that I think women are very attuned to, that's different. So that's um, an interesting thing too, that just thought
Mhm.
crossed my mind. So tell me
That's
a little bit about the change management and the job you had that was like that. Was that was that your first job after college, or was that like later on? Sounds like you've
later,
had sort of
later
a
on.
whole myriad of jobs.
Yeah, I could talk about the bad job. We can have a whole other
Tell me,
series.
tell me, like, what's your worst job? What's the worst? Not just the job. We'll do worst job, worst manager, and if they're one and the same. But I'd love to hear that.
My worst job. Let's see. I wrote them all down here. Let's see. Oh, I think I worked for I'll just leave it vague. It was a high end bowling alley that served drinks. And it was all I had worked at a production company before then, still wasn't making enough money to cover the parking meter almost. Like it was
Yeah.
just, and then I'd go back to my waitressing job and I was balancing those um, after college. Like, and that was fun. Like it was creative. The one job was creative. And then I had the other one that was my study, which was waiting tables. And then we had one of our radio clients was this bowling alley, and so they had an opening for a event planner. So I was like, oh, I want to do events. I love events. Like I've done that. So like I want to do more of it. And I do not live near this place. It's not even there anymore, but it's north of where we are. So it could be like anywhere like an hour and a half in traffic, whatever. But I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm big, I'm in the city. They sent us to New York City for training, and we went out with
Oh
the
wow.
owner who, was whatever. And then I got sick on that trip because I was so nervous, like going on the train ride up, that I got sick
Oh my
on the train.
gosh.
I I'm sorry, I threw up in the
No,
sink of
anything
the
you want to
train,
share.
and as I'm doing it, I'm looking up and there's a sign that says, "Do not put anything in the sink." And I'm like, "Oh my God." So like it's like, and my
Were you
coworker,
like trying to fish it out? I hope not.
it's just swishing, and I'm like, "What am I going to do?" My coworker's there. She was eating like an egg sandwich. That should have told me something, that she wasn't going to be like my girl, because she knew I didn't feel well. And then so I was kind of sick during that training on and off, but I was like, no, I'm going to do it, so trained up there, came back, and it was an office of me and two other girls, and I was doing the children's birthday parties. And so like I would go in there and I would have to work on Saturdays and greet the families. And they were like, "Oh, who are you? I thought you were one of the moms or whatever." And I'm like, "Okay, well, do you need anything?" They're like, "I'm just here to spend my husband's money." And I was just like, ew, like, like I want this to be more not what it is. And there was some like bullying that was going on there. Like the girls would dress alike at events. Like we had this event with like Michael Jordan and like all these celebrities, and it was a really big deal. And
Yeah.
they were like matching outfits and didn't tell me. So like I come to the event, I'm like, oh, okay, like, whatever, no big deal. But they would get coffee without me. And it was just kind of,
Just excluded. Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't a great fit. And I think like I don't know, you can cut this out, but they had like
Listen, no,
hired
no.
someone.
I actually think that's really interesting because, I do think that who you work with matters as much, if not more, than what you do for work. People who are supportive, inclusive, they leverage you, you leverage them, you learn from them, they learn from you, they respect you, you respect them. I actually think that is a huge, huge part of a job. And I think leaving a job where you're not respected or not cared for or not included is absolutely good for, the right reasons. I think, um, in fact, I think it's undervalued as a motivating factor, for people that, you know, why would you stay somewhere where you're not being treated well? And maybe it wasn't your boss doing it, but, you know, at what point is your boss responsible for the work culture and environment
Oh,
and,
absolutely. No,
that
like
kind of
they
thing?
were planning like trips to basketball games like right in front of me. She was my boss. And the other
Oh, she
one,
was your boss.
yeah,
Okay.
when I trained in New York, the one girl like got me to tell her how much my salary was, and then she kind of used that against me later, and that was weird. And then when I had gone up to interview the first time, I got there and they were like, "Oh, we already filled this position." And I said, "Oh, well, I just wanted you to look at my resume because we already filled it. We don't need you." And then that girl got let go like within the first week. So I think like there was already sour grapes around. I don't blame them. Like this girl was around my age. She was getting paid a lot of money. Like they were paying, she had a lot of power very early. So I typically tended to come in pretty hot because I'm like, let's go, let's make this awesome, let's love this place, like, and it's just kind of like, it's not that serious, okay. So, but I got on well with the accounting person and went to Caps games with the cook in the back, and
Did you
like
get to meet Michael Jordan? That's the most important part.
no, because well, we were supposed to not speak to him, so it was just kind of like, and like Lonnie
Oh,
Baxter was there and Juan Dixon, if you're a Terps
uh,
fan
what?
back then. So
Yeah,
that's where I was like, and then Vivica Fox was there, and it was just kind of cool. It was, I'm giving away what this place is, but it does. I don't think it
I don't
exists.
even know if I know, but very cool though. I think so but that the whole thing is interesting because even um what this is a great question. What's the shortest tenure you've had at a job? Was it like from the day you were hired to the day you quit,
Yep.
approximately?
So, well, I did quit that one job at the bowling alley, and I had to walk to the metro because I didn't drive that day. Best walk of my life.
Were
I
you
knew
just
I
like,
made the right decision. I thought she was like, "Well, you don't have your car," so I said, I gave her 2 weeks notice, but she's like, "You can just go, okay?" And I was like, "Okay, if you need anything else, like this is what I was working on. This is where it is. I'm a good person. Goodbye." Like
yes.
I'm gonna go dance on air because the
How
restaurant had
long
hired me back.
how
They kept
long
begging
into
me to
that
come back.
job? Oh, I'm sure they were. How long
Um,
was that
I
time
don't
frame
even
that you had?
know, a million years. No, it was like a year, 6 months. I have no idea, but
Okay.
it just it wasn't great. So
My
then the
shortest job, sorry, go
oh
ahead.
yeah, what was yours?
Pizza Hut.
Oh yeah,
one one week. I
did you
was
deliver?
like,
Or what are you
I don't,
making?
I'm making serving. I don't know why. I mean, it was very uninspired for me, and I just was like,
Really?
meh, I'm not that into this. But
Mm.
no horrible boss stories. I'm trying to envision you on this walk. Just like peace out, I'm gone. But
It feels
I
so
think
good. I had
that's
another job
actually
lined up, so I
well.
was kind of like, but I wanted to give them time. I wanted to tell them where I was with this and that, and it was just like, you know,
They weren't going to be those people. And I think that's actually a really interesting thing because, um, one of the things that I find to be very important in somebody's career is knowing when to fold them, when to walk away, when to say
when
this
to
isn't a
run.
fit for me, to run. Even when, I mean, I've had one incident where I took off my apron. I was waitressing at a chain restaurant, and the manager was a jerk, and he was bullying my coworker, not even me. And I was like, and I said, I'm leaving. And I marched out of there, and I told my friend she could come with me, and I told the entire kitchen they could come with me, and nobody came with me. But
Oh, Jerry
but that
Maguire.
was my moment. Yeah. Um, that was my 3 month job. But at the time, I felt like I was standing up for somebody who deserved it. The only person that affected was me.
Mhm.
But you know what? I never regretted it. I've never regretted my moment, and I think it's because probably one thing you and I have in common is we like to stand up for what's right,
Mhm.
and we're not going into any situation to hurt anyone, take anything away from anyone, or anything like that. And I think when workplace dynamics, when you come in hot because you're enthusiastic, because you want to be part of a team, because you want
Mhm.
to make a difference, not everyone is there with you, and that is that sort of that the office politics of it all, some environments are going to really embrace that. And obviously, you had this place begging for you to come back, and you had a job lined up, which I also think is another thing. If you can stand to have a job lined up for you before you leave a place, I think that's good.
Hmm.
But if you don't, if you're in a bad situation, um, you know, sometimes you got to just walk away, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Um, but so that's your shortest.
No, that wasn't the shortest one. Was I left that family run restaurant because somebody told me their daughter was making like hundreds of dollars a night at Jillian's, which was kind of like a Dave and Buster's. So that was
Oh,
another long
geez.
commute that I drove out to. I went to the week-long training, and then I worked I worked one daytime shift and one like evening shift in their comedy club. And like,
Sure.
and it was so loud in there, and I'm like giving people their drinks. I'm not a flirtatious person. I think you have to be flirtatious if you want to do well as a cocktail waitress. So I was just, I was like, he had like a Cavassier or something, and I'm like, here you go. And then I was like, oh, do you need change? He goes, well, it was going to be your tip, and then just took it. Like, so I think that night I made like $25 or something. It wasn't that crowded. I gave all the money to the bartender, and I was like, I'm not coming back. Like, I just left. I was like, but the good thing was I realized, and it's part of my personality too, like I was over it. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm over it. And even when I worked the daytime shift, I was like, I'll just fold your napkins for you. Give me your napkins. I don't even want to. And I should say I was living at home at that time. So, I
Not
had
like you had like
a place
massive
to
bills
live.
to pay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a big part of it too, is like if you're going into your career and you've established yourself on your own, quitting can be a lot harder than if you are in a position. And but that's the cool thing about trying different jobs when you're young and you do still live at home, presumably. Um, is that's a great time to try those different things and to know when to move on. And there's jobs that are, I mean, the jobs are just never going to be on my resume. Besides being short-lived, they were so long ago and they're irrelevant. So there's a point where you move on from that. But I do think you learn a lot about yourself and what you don't want,
Mm-hmm.
what you're not going to put up with, and that if you're not sure where you definitely want to go, you really learn quickly where you don't want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So, after college, is there a job that was sort of like that aha moment for you? Like, this is exactly it for me. I love this job, even if it's the current one you're in today.
Oh yeah. So I think it took me a while to get there, but I I had to pivot, and I have to explain this because when I was growing up, everybody's mom worked at University of Maryland. I think like one mom worked there, and then all my classmates' moms worked there. So I was like, that's a mom job. I don't want that. My mom was a secretary, and she worked so hard for executives, and I'm going to be the executive. And I couldn't understand, like, I'm not going to do that. And then the job market being what it was, I finally broke down, and I was like, I didn't know how bad I would want those mom jobs later because they are not mom, that's not an insult, but it's like this. I just felt like it was like, you don't care about your career. You're just working here and whatever. So I went to a community center. I think I cried. I learned Excel and Word. I took like a Saturday class, put it on my resume, got a part-time job at Maryland doing faculty services. So I was sitting there like making copies and putting out cookies for people who were going places, students who were in programs and earning degrees and studying in a lab and that kind of thing. So I would cry in the bathroom there, and I think people thought my boyfriend was mean, but it wasn't. It was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm watching these people kind of on their paths to graduate school or whatever. So of course, like when I put out the cookies, I had to make a big flowery montage of the construction paper. Like, I ended up reorganizing the mailroom, and I organized this professor's boxes. Like, he had all these research papers that he would refer to, and he had like 8
Mhm.
boxes, and I got it done in like a month and a half. And he was like one of my references. So they were trying to make a job for me in this department. It was for like publicity or outreach or something like that, but it was like slow moving. And I met with the dean, and he was like, we want to create a position for you, which was awesome. And then I got offered a job in the journalism department for a nonprofit within it. And that
Mm.
job, I was like, oh my gosh, because I worked with this Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, and, I was a little bit like, I can learn so much from this person, like,
Mhm.
so it was a very small office and that job was intense. And I loved it. I was
Did you
managing
and
like
you
five.
use your English degree, so there's
Yeah,
that.
kind of. Yeah, yeah. Like I was working on the website and I was doing like managing. I can geek out about this forever, but like I took my friends in my office one weekend, like when we were doing like the fireworks by Maryland. And I was like, look at my binders. And my friend who does very creative, artsy stuff, like she's like a hairdresser and she does this and that. She's like, I never really thought of your job that way. Like, but I was so excited. I'm like, these are the, I plan events for each binder and I keep it, and my boss would always say, put it in the brain dump binder in case you get hit by a bus. So that was like so sometimes I would cry at that job too. And I'd work late trying to get this newsletter out, digital newsletter out to like 50,000 journalists. It had to go perfectly. And because of the way the software was, it would glitch halfway through. So then you had to restart it. So you had to be there all night almost. It was just ridiculous. And so I'm crying and there's a karate studio next door and I hear ding dong. And like, cause I had a window, I had my own office. So it was like great. Like, that was nice. And then he comes in and he's like, he's not worth it, honey. And I was like, I'm not crying because of my boyfriend. I'm crying because I don't know what I'm doing in my life. Like I just,
In my life.
but I got promoted quickly there. Like I started out as the program manager for just in general. And then I was the communication specialist. And then I became the finance and outreach manager. And then they were going to add an extra grant for me to manage. And I was like, I'm kind of like, bring it on, let's go, but it was just getting to be where I was doing several jobs. And so anyway, so I left there to work at a global online college that serves the military, and it's UMUC at the time. I'll just say it. I loved that job. I could even cry just talking about it. Like I started out as the web editor writer, and then the more I got into it, like I was like working with designers and collaborating with coders and just having like, I could write for the president that morning or make our benefits. That never happened, but something horrible news. And I could try to couch it in a way that people could understand and not feel so like, like this is why it's happening. You don't need to worry about it because it doesn't impact this people, and that kind of thing. And it was fast paced. I got to like create websites in like a day. My boss there, I didn't know if I appreciated all the things that she would say at the time, but now I have those sayings that she would say, and she was a mentor to me and I didn't realize it at the time, but she would say like, nobody knows what they want until you show them what they don't. So I got really good at doing things quickly. I was like, I'm going to get this draft out. I'm going to design this website. Like I was designing like a website a week. I was just like banging them out. Wow. Like just like, okay, here's, and I loved the pace of it. It was great. Sorry.
So just to go back for a second, you had the job before UMUC and then you left that. Did you leave it just because you really liked the job at UMUC? Did it sounded interesting and up your alley? Or did you leave because something had happened to make you want to, was it too much? The one where the karate guy was knocking on the door because you were crying. Was it just
intense.
too much?
It was intense. I would eat I think I weighed nothing at that point, and I would I would have dinner every day, like lunch, dinner.
That's lunch, dinner.
I would drink coffee all the time, eat like chocolate covered espresso beans. Like I was just like working on nerves all the time. And I loved the pace of it. I loved the variety of it, but it was just like, I'm not going to do well, like health wise if I don't, and
you
I
need
was
something.
Get married. Yeah. So I kind of wanted a change. And because of how because it was a organization within the college, I couldn't get tuition remission. So I was like, if I work at UMUC, they'll pay for my master's degree. So that's what I did. So I got my master's degree and a job I really liked. And I kind of studied. I was going to study advertising, but they were phasing that out, that specialization. So I didn't do that. So it was all paid for. Then my boss ended up leaving and there was and then I got pregnant and I got married. And then I got pregnant. And after I had my son, I was like, like I could breathe. And I had a friend from college that I used to talk about I talk about work like nobody's business. It's my favorite topic. I will talk your head off, as you can see. But he leaned over into me. I was holding my baby, and he goes, "You found your purpose." And my heart kind of broke at that moment, because I was like, way to go, feminists. Like, you're
Yeah,
like, all these things you've been chasing, and then now
this
um,
is your moment.
this
Yeah.
feels like the real, and the universe, and time was in a capsule, and it was so great. But of course, I had to freelance, because I was like, I'm a woman. I'm not going to just, I didn't know how long I'd be out. Then we had another kid 3 years later. So, I ended up, and then they were both kind of neurodivergent, had to like work with all those different things. And I was in every PTA thing. If you had a gift basket fundraiser, like I had my whole side room was filled with gift baskets. Like I went hard. We got like so many donations. It
That's
was like a little
fantastic.
embarrassing. And then, so
Well,
yeah.
that's really profound to me because I think, and this is probably something that I'm going to encounter with every interview I do with a woman who has
Mhm,
children,
mhm,
is it is a defining moment in our career trajectory. And, we talk about the imbalance of opportunity and power and pay equity and all those things for women. But there's there's two sides to that coin. Women don't care as much about pay as we care about being with our children
mhm.
and having, this opportunity as mothers. And so it changes where our values are in terms of career trajectory. But also, um, and for many of us, there's not for all of us, but for many, the option is you leave your baby with a stranger and go to work, or you stop your work and be with your baby. And like you said, you freelanced. I did the same thing. So I think that is a defining moment for women in our career, and for many women it's it's sort of a pause button. And obviously since then you've gotten back into the career, into your
I did
career.
go back briefly, and I ended up pumping in my boss's empty like office, like, and I'm just sitting there like pumpkin, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like I've got my dress. It was so stupid. Like, and I was like, I kept wanting to be two people who could walk and just live their lives. I
Do
could
separate
experience them
things,
both
yeah.
and then come back, and I just couldn't do it. Um, I
Hmm.
I could, but I would neglect my baby, and I think people who make different choices, and that's fine. Like I have friends who are, VPs now, and they stayed the course there, and they had their thing worked out. But like for me, I just, that was it.
And I don't think,
Easiest.
I don't think that women who did either, like, I don't know if different women have different regrets. I know I didn't regret sidelining my career. Um, and I would say it's never fully been back front and center. I've
Mhm.
made choices in my career trajectory that give me the balance to be a mother first.
Yeah.
But still support my career, but that balance I think had to exist and still has to exist. Would you say that's true for you?
Yeah.
Do you do your job strictly in office or can you work remotely?
I work remotely 1 day a week, but I really like that time in the office. I feel like it's almost like a break from being home. I was home for so long, and I think I also came into this job like just very like, "Hi, coworkers," like,
I
you
love
know.
that. Well, and also, you don't have to look at your dishes that need doing,
Exactly.
and nobody's asking you to help them with something. You are just separate in a way at work. And I think sometimes, and different people have different things like hybrid, work from home, or separate. And, separating helps you be there 100% and then come home and be there 100%. I think that's good because sometimes when you work from home, the lines blur a lot too,
And
you
can I
know?
say too, like, how privileged my position was? It's, as I'm hearing myself talk about how my community college was, and a bachelor's program was paid for. And then, I didn't choose where I would go, but it was like, that was paid for. My husband and I had a talk. We said, let's just we lived in a tiny little snow globe of a house, and, but it was a happy time. Like, and I wouldn't trade it, even though I feel like my mom asked me today, she said, "Oh, so when are you planning on retiring?" And I'm like, I already retired. I'm going to work until I drop dead, I think. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Who knows? And that's actually a really interesting thing because you're a few years younger than me, I think, but I think that there is a point where you start thinking about what's our end game. What's the exit strategy, and and I think you're probably like me that even if we officially retire, we'll find ourselves volunteering in some way, doing some, you know, uh, sort of soulful effort as opposed to financial gain effort. And, it sounds like your current job is a little bit of both, that you get paid for doing something you love. And you sound very enthusiastic about it. Is that correct?
I am. Yeah. I mean, those students are that's why, and I get to manage a magazine. I used to, as a kid, I used to like stay home alone in my room and like make magazines from cover to cover with characters and stories and layout. And I would just geek out and do this like all the time. I loved it so much. And now to be able, and it sounds childish, but like, it lights me up. I love, where is it? Do I have that magazine around here? Our latest one just came out. Like I was part of a redesign for it, how the content's laid out. Like I created buckets of content so we can just roll in the same kind of topics, each like same bucket, but a different, different take on it. And it's been going smoothly. I get to collaborate with a designer who's so great to work with. So that project is a real joy. Like
So
I
at
love
this moment in time, you're pretty settled and happy where you are.
Yeah, I would say so. I have, because of the multi-potentialite thing coming back, it always circles back, and I'm always trying to improve things and do things, and if you work in a college, it's kind of like things go at a kind of a different pace, I guess. So I do freelance stuff, but I don't necessarily charge because I know, and it's a horrible thing, and I wouldn't let anybody else do that. But like I recently, a neighbor asked me to work on a website for his nonprofit that his father started, and his father life was ended shortly, not his fault. And it was it's this beautiful story. And I was like, he kept asking me to invoice him, and I'm
You
a
just couldn't
terrible
get
invoicing.
yourself.
I know, but I was like, you know what? I said, I feel moved in my heart. I want to be part of this. And I'm sorry, but like, I want to continue like what he's doing.
Right.
Because it's like,
What is the purpose of it? What is the
sorry, that's so lame,
nonprofit do?
but
I
it's so
love it.
touching. It's the Moro Moro Scholarship Fund. And it's like they raise money so that these kids in Moro Moro, Bolivia can go to college for the first time. And I
I
just,
love that.
like, it changes their lives. They don't have roads there. And then the fact that his
Yeah.
dad's mission got cut short and that it still lives on with these people who loved him. It's so, I don't know. I'm sorry. We can cut this
No,
out.
I love that. No, we can't. We won't. But I think actually this is something, so just to back up for a second, my goal here
Mm,
is to inspire people and whatever that looks like. And I think there's a disconnect for a lot of people on what they do for work versus what they're passionate about. And yeah, you're choosing not to get paid for this freelance, but it's kind of also what you do for work, and everything you've done to this point has given you the skills and the tools to support something like that.
mhm.
And they want to pay you. Maybe it opens up a new opportunity for you. Maybe it doesn't. It's just heart work. It's just something that makes you feel good. And to be able to have those skills and get paid for it at your job and then give that in another way, I think is sort of like your whole life's journey of your career coming full circle in a way that you're so passionate about that it's actually moving you to tears, which I think is actually really beautiful. And and just to relate to that, my situation is very different. I'm not passionate enough about what I do. I'm passionate about my career trajectory, which is mostly HR, human resources. I'm passionate about it because there are things that I could, in theory, do to protect people from, bad employers and discrimination and things like that. But I don't have the platform or bandwidth at the moment to
Mhm.
actually
Yes.
help those people. And employers don't care. They don't want to pay an HR person to help them do the right thing. They don't
Mhm.
want to do the right thing. And so I am a little bit emotionally burned out that nobody cares about this stuff, that they're not passionate about protecting their employees and doing the right things and the best things for their employees. And not to mention, I could probably save them money on benefits and give them
There
leverage
you
their
go.
benefits and make them an attractive place to work. But
That's
nobody
how you do it,
cares.
right? But you've
Yeah,
you have such a brilliant brain, and you can really like,
but nobody cares, and it gets tiring trying to convince people. And I see what you're doing as something somebody really cares about, and you really care about. And I think, you know, part of my journey is figuring out how I can take my skill and apply it to the things I genuinely care about. And this podcast is one of those things. I care about helping other people
mhm,
find their path.
yeah,
And, you can't always choose what you love if you need to pay the bills, but I think you can carve that path to get there and know when to quit to get there and know when to, stop and pause and be in the moment with your young children and get there. You're a perfect example of that.
and one reason I
So,
took this job too, even though it's not anywhere near me, is because it's near where my son goes to school. So I wanted still to be closer to him, even though it would be impossible to get into the city if I had to. But, like,
right.
um,
Oh, but also because you're never going to be able to take that mom hat fully off. You're in your career, but you're still choosing a convenience factor as a mom. I think that's a lot of women. Could I ask you if you could just do anything, you know, without anybody to consider but what you want to do, what would that be?
well, I always think like if I won the lottery, the first thing that, and then I don't know why, because I think I would hate it, but the fact that I could just try it and then park it somewhere and abandon it is run a food truck. I think that's so cool. Like
Yeah.
just serving people and like talking to them and like serving, because my husband's like a great cook, and I'm like, we could have this like food truck and, you know,
So wait, what kind of food? I need to know.
I think somebody took that name, but I think he had like Nacho Mamas or something, and he was going to make different types of nachos. And then but he can make anything. Like he's just so talented. And then our son has celiac disease, so I was like, what if we had a bakery where we could, But then it's like you start thinking like, okay, but this person has this allergy, and then you've got to get rid of that allergy just so more people can have it, and it just becomes. But if you win the lottery, you don't care. You're like, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna park this joint over here and leave. Let someone else have it, I would
That's
probably I would probably still I would do a lot of philanthropic work, philanthropic
yeah,
work,
I
just
can
kind
see
of,
that for you.
helping, uh, people kind of start over. I think is something I want to volunteer at, Welcome Home Neighbor, like finding different furnishings and thinking about like resourcing things and connecting people with each other and the resources that are needed. And somebody, there's so many things I want to
There's so
do,
many ways to help. Yeah.
and there's
Well,
not
and
enough time, which is the
yeah,
sad part. So it's like, at this point, do I kind of keep, I guess it's a mom job. I don't know. Like, most people who work there are moms, but it's
but
like,
it sounds like you're helping students.
yeah. I mean, these students are rock stars, though. Like, they come in as ECAP, the Early College Access Program, and they're working at MedStar Health as nursing, or, like bedpan stuff or whatever they're doing. And then they graduate with their associate degree and their high school diploma together. And then they've transferred off to like a different, like a college with the scholarship. And, these kids are different. They kind of know what they're doing. And that's cool too. Like,
Yeah. That's really interesting. I mean, so the nonprofit thing is interesting in general, and I think there's some nonprofits that you feel more connected to the cause than others. I've worked
mhm,
at nonprofits where I felt disconnected from the cause,
yeah.
and it wasn't like it was a bad cause. It just my role in the organization wasn't connected to the cause. I was in the HR department, and um, but I do think that having like for some people, I've talked about this. There's different pieces of the pie for reasons that you work. Some is you just like the challenge of it and you like using skills that you have. Some of it is pay. Some of it is, you know, building your opportunities. Pay is a big one because you have to pay the bills. But if you could pay it in 10 different ways, why did you go down this path, or would you change this path? But I feel like that fulfillment piece is a bigger piece of the pie for some people
Mhm.
than pay, and then, convenience and things like that. Um, but I do think that it's funny that you got into the college realm even though you thought it was a mom job. I find that so funny. Um,
And I'm like, please, that sounds amazing. And it's not all, it's
it, what one of the things that I see, so speaking of mom jobs, my mom was like a computer scientist, rocket scientist at NASA for 25 years. And
Mhm.
she kind of moved into more management and proposal writing. And then she wound up starting her own consulting firm doing proposal writing. But her job was anything but a mom job. And I was aware that she worked with all these male engineers and
Mm.
things like that. And, I watched the movie Hidden Figures. Have you seen
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yep.
Oh my God, I cried my eyes out because first of all, the machines they were working on were the same as my mom worked on, and some, there there were difficulties there were different than hers in a lot of ways, but I also remember a lot of stories that there were a lot of similar things. Just being a woman working in that environment, do you feel like there's ever been a situation where being a woman in a work environment has affected you?
Oh, yeah.
Love to hear it.
Oh, yeah. So when I worked at the production boutique, which was like a fun job, like I was, you know, we did like 48-hour film project and we filmed a TV commercial and we did all these things, but they didn't want, like I was into creative writing and doing all this stuff. And they didn't want me to even participate in something fun, like the 48-hour film project. It was very much a boys club and women were for dating or data entry, you know?
Mhm.
I'm not, again, like I said, I'm not like a kind of girl. Like I'm just kind of like, all right, I'm one of the guys. Put
Yeah.
me in there. I'm coming. I'm doing what you're doing because that's more fun. Goes back to childhood when I had my Chips motorcycle and this boy was like, we're going to play Daisy Dukes of Hazzard and you can be Daisy. And I was like, and that's my ride. Like you're getting off of it. I was like, I'm, like,
That's
so,
my right.
so one time the boss was saying like, and he was like really young guy and he was like in his late 20s and had been given some money to start this. And he was like, okay, so to the web designer, he was like, we can get you training and this and that. And for Julie, we can get you data entry. And I was just like, ew, like, I don't want to do data entry. Like, I want to learn, like as much as I can while I'm here. But there wasn't.
They kind of pigeonholed you there.
Yeah. And there was no growth. If I don't see any growth, I have to go. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
and that restaurant gave me growth after opportunity after opportunity until I realized, like, unless I become one of the brothers, I'm never going to own this place. Like, this is not my business.
Were
Like,
when you were doing all those things, were they paying you extra for it?
I negotiated my salary and I paid myself horribly. I think he even
Mm.
laughed when I said it because I was like, if I could just make this much, it would be enough. And yeah, I don't want to hurt my chances of negotiating later, but I really just feel like if it's right, um, at a certain
And
point in your career, like,
I think the negotiation thing is another thing that is a skill actually to develop, and having the confidence to sort of know what you're worth, and you know um, not just take what you're given. I wasn't really told when I was younger that you can and should negotiate. Now
mhm,
I say you can and should, but I also think there's a balance to that. But I like now that Maryland has laws that say that employers have to share the salary
that's
if you
so great.
publish it. If they haven't published it and you request the range, they have to give it to you, and it has to be consistent. And there's only certain exceptions to them paying someone outside of that range, and it's only above, not below. So
Mhm.
in theory, in practice, I think there's a lot of companies not doing that. And I think that that's an evolution. But the whole reason they did this transparency is to protect people like Julie who don't advocate for their worth, and like me when I was younger. And I just had a conversation with a client not that long ago, and he was sort of surprised by my hourly rate. I said, "Do you know, I mean, how much knowledge I have to have. I practically practice employment law without a law degree.
Hmm.
And I have to know and understand all these changing laws as they're changing and all these benefit plans and
Hmm.
how they operate and function and the math of them. And, there's so many responsibilities and the amount of knowledge and the years of experience that I've developed, and to be kind of scoffed at, like I was just charging way too much. And I'm like, I don't think you would scoff at this if I were like a CFO, but I'm basically like a CHRO.
Hmm.
And, you know, so I just think it's a perception value thing. But I do think it starts with you as the individual and doing the research and knowing what you need to be asking for. Do you feel like, without getting into salary, do you feel like you're paid competitively now based on the industry you're in and all those things?
I do. Yeah.
Good.
It's not like a sore spot for me. I did go to a conference recently and met like 30-year-old VPs, and I'm like, well, how come her? Like, what am I
No,
doing wrong? Or and that comparison. But what I'm finding, which I think is interesting, is that the women at the conference were like, I ended up sharing our style guide that I created with somebody else. And they're like, oh my God, this is so helpful. This is going to save me so much time. Somebody else like told me about this other resource. And I was watching a video earlier today, and it was talking about, it's this HR lady that does these shorts. And she was saying like, women are kept from supporting each other because we're easier to control that way. So like, if you share resources, you're not my competitor. There's not only one woman who's allowed to do this. Or, if we lift each other up, we're kind of in a better position, I think. And
yeah,
maybe that comes with maturity, or maybe the times are different. I'm not sure, but I feel like it's changed, or I've changed. I'm not sure.
I do think I think it's a little bit of both. And I think that women, leveraging women is important. I started my own business because I realized I wasn't going to be allowed at a table. And I said, well, I'm just going to build my own.
Yeah.
And I have, and I've done well, and I'm happy for that. One question I have for you is, oh, and this is why doing podcasts is tough for me. I probably have one blip every single episode where I forget what I was talking about. Okay, so it was
It was like being
oh
a
yeah,
woman.
the VP thing.
Mhm.
So you're like, what are they doing to get there, and why am I not there? Do you want that? Like, have you thought about what that role, that sort of higher leadership role is, and is that something you want? And so just to preface this, when I being a CEO is different because there's no one else to get in trouble with than me. So I can
Mhm.
misbehave, and who's gonna get me in trouble? Being a vice president, I think, is a lot of pressure. And your people above you have to please, and people below you have to manage and motivate and support and reprimand and babysit really. Um, and then a good chunk of your job, I think, becomes more about that, the people side, than the task side. And my question to you is that something you want for yourself, could see for yourself, and want to leverage in your
Actually, no.
future?
It's funny because I think the thing I realized that I was envious about was that this girl was like, and she was so nice and great, and she had on, her badge, and she's like, well, I know where I'm going to put this in that drawer where I keep all my other badges from conferences. It won't even close. And I'm like, they're investing in her. Like, they want her to grow. She's being mentored. And I don't know, because I took off almost 15 years. So it's
Hmm.
like, I think a friend had tried to get me a job at where he worked, where it would have been remote for this like healthcare or something or other. And he told me that they asked, well, does she have the chops? And I was like, I don't want to work there. Like, ew. What do you mean? Like, I got my kid into a, like a school without hiring a parent attorney or whatever the thing is, with a notoriously hard principal. And, like,
Right.
and that's not even it. Like, I
They
have
don't
jobs
even
that
know the
I'm
force that you are.
yeah.
They
So
don't
that
know.
kind of, I was shut out before I was even spoken to about anything. And that's not for me. And the title isn't for me. It does nothing for me, really. Like, I'll show up as long as there's learning and there's something like we're doing good together. If there's somebody who's nefarious or something, like, I don't want to work for them.
You don't want to do it. Yeah, I had when I was job searching, I was working for a company, but I was only working very part-time, and I knew I was going to need full-time hours at some point because I was getting divorced and whatever. And I went on a job interview, and the guy, I know HR, I know the laws, and I mean, he probably didn't. He was definitely younger than me, but he was Mr. Large and in charge. And he's saying to me, like, how do I know you're going to make it here? What happens when one of your kids is sick? Da, 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 da. And you're not allowed to do that. You weren't allowed to do that back then. And looking back at it, I should have smacked him around a little verbally, not breaking the law physically, but might have wanted to. But I do feel like I just kind of was like, I kept going back to the official response, which is I'm a professional. If I'm going to take a job, I understand the requirements of the job, and I understand that that requires me to be at work during certain set hours. And that's what I kept going back to. Well, what if your kids do this? What do? Who's going to help you? And I'm like, it's really none of his business, but I'm trying not to like shut him down. And I got up and walked out of there, and I was like, why didn't I just like, you know, smack him around a little and
Yeah.
scare him a little and tell him I'm going to report him and whatever. But I thought to myself, not only would I never take this job, I feel terrible for any woman who does.
Does. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guarantee you he was going to hire a woman because he there was the job to him was something more
Women's work.
menial, women's work, and I think that I dodged a bullet, and thank goodness I wasn't desperate enough to take that job. And actually, the job I was in that I liked quite well at the time, it grew, and I didn't have to leave there after all. Thank goodness. But, the fact of the matter is sometimes walking away from some job where they don't respect you right off the bat is you're just dodging a bullet.
You're like, get
You're
out.
just taking, yeah.
The red flags in the interviews will, kind of tell you things. So
have you ever had like a sexual harassment situation? No.
No.
Yeah.
You?
Yeah.
Not even at a restaurant. I'm just not the like. No, I don't mean like I'm not the type. That sounds horrible. But I just I don't know. Maybe I'm oblivious. I don't know. No.
I don't just mean like flirting.
There's a cook that like came up. Like I was on the computer, like working on the website, and he was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he like touched his wet mouth to my neck, and I was like, "Oh!" And the door was shut, and the blinds were down because in the office there were people around, like outside. But I'm thinking like, but that was like a food and beverage situation.
Oh yeah,
that kind of.
I do think certain environments are.
I hope it's changed.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I watched this show where they do like it's like on a yacht, and it's like they follow the people who work on the yacht, and like the rich people come and they serve them, and it follows the servers, and there's all kinds of mayhem going on behind the scenes. And some of it is welcome, and some of it's a little bit like if they have someone in HR watching this, but it's so it's definitely
on the seas, isn't it? Like it doesn't count.
International
about the cruises.
So. Yeah, I mean, and I think that there's a certain thing of like, okay, romance can happen in the workplace. It's just as long as it's wanted by both parties, and if one party decides they no longer want it, that they're not being harassed or in any way retaliated against. I've had things like, working on a project and being like so excited about what I'm presenting, and then the guy's like, "Oh, so you're more than just a pretty face," and in the moment being like, but like being like, "Ha, yeah." And walking away like, what was that? Like, you didn't even acknowledge anything I worked on, So there's things like that. There's definitely, well, I'll call them sensitive toes. I've learned that you are fine where you are as long as you're in a woman's lane. But the minute you step into a man's lane, that's the moment. And a lot of women don't ever step on that lane. So
and working in marketing, it's like a lady fest. Like there are some, some men in there, but it's predominantly female.
It is interesting that there really are like whole jobs that are more strictly female and whole jobs that are more strictly male. And I hope to see that evolve and change. But I also think that women gravitate to places where they feel like they can be themselves, as I fix my bra strap.
I'll do it too.
Yeah.
No, and I want to be myself. I don't want to put on the VP thing. I can't you know, it's just not of interest to me. Like I've always been the thing that people say they are like, I didn't care anymore about this or that. And I'm like, you cared about that ever? What's that like? And now I'm wondering, should I be caring about those things? So I'm kind of working in reverse, going like, is this my last chance to do that thing if I want to? And then I'm a writer, so you have ChatGPT. That's important. Like that's kind of,
Is that taking
and I had
over?
somebody say to me who's a designer, like, well, you could just do it with ChatGPT. And I was like, how would you like it if I was like, I'll just use a design from Canva. I don't need you. Like, I'm like, no, I value what you do, and like, let me,
Do
do my
your thing,
thing.
yeah. Well, and I think the AI question's an interesting one because I know that a lot of people who are seeking jobs are going to be questioning, well, will my job be taken over by AI at some point? And, I think that AI will facilitate some things, but I
Mm,
think that there's human response and judgment and ownership of tasks that you have to have a human being behind.
yeah.
Um, will it change? Like, Canva's a good example.
I
It'll
don't know if
do a
people
lot of things.
care. And that's the thing too, like what you were saying, like, do people actually care if it's something that I crafted, or is it just like ChatGPT or AI or whatever you use, like can put it together and that's good enough? And my mom said something when I was a kid, which was, well, she didn't actually say it but I put it together. She would give the dogs like their food or like steak. She was like, I prepared the steak and I gave some to the dogs and they just ate it up. And then later on, I saw them eating just as happily out of the litter box. So it's like, don't prepare steak for dogs that are happy eating out of the litter box. So like, are people happy eating out of the litter box? And if you show them steak, will they care about it? Or do they need it? Can they survive on the litter? Like
Yeah,
litter
that's
treasure.
a
Who
really
knows?
interesting thing. I feel like as we get into this world where there's AI doing so many things, I actually think authenticity is going to have greater value. And I think that, remaining with your skill set and your authenticity behind it, I think it'll connect better. Even just like some of the stuff that AI will write for like an article or whatever, it's like well written, but it lacks that human experience, that human touch, the side notes that a human might put in, and I think the more authentic you create that article, the more reader friendly it'll be. So
Yeah.
I just don't think that AI is anywhere near really replacing the human experience. People can use it. I've used it for things for my business. I don't think it's a tool, but currently right now it's laughably bad, to be honest.
I mean,
There's
you have
things,
Fiverr too, and you have, small
yeah.
businesses are using like I know somebody who's grown child is like, has their own business and they're making all this money and they're paying people overseas like, $40 a year or something. I don't know. But like to kind of automate their business and get things done. And I'm like, I can't do that. I could never do that. Like,
Mhm.
so I know that hustle life isn't for me, like where you have to kind of like put yourself above the group. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think that, um, the I don't know. I feel like the dynamic, the dynamics of people and how they will step all over each other and how they'll, try to survive, I guess, by pushing other people down. It's just, I think that's always going to exist, within a work culture. I don't know. It's one question I have for you is if you were to give advice to somebody who is just starting their career, what would be your top, like, three pieces of advice?
oh boy. I think like now
Well, we
from
all, not including the server thing.
Oh, that everybody should be. You should just
That was a good
just wait
one.
tables to get stuck there. You can get stuck there. Don't get stuck
Yeah.
waiting tables because it's real hard to save money when you're so tired. You're serving people and you want to go out that night too, and then you just stay in the cycle and you're too tired to get out of it. So be careful that it will suck you in. But everybody comes from somewhere different. Like they have different parental involvement. They have different mentor, like a mentor. My God, if you can find a place where somebody is willing to support you and let you make mistakes and grow and try new things, like for me and my personality, that is the best for me. I love a vague instruction, like just Julie, just take care of it, and and they can trust me to do it, and I love that. But find what works for you. I'm all about like taking different personality tests and like like which careers are for you. I'm always asking these questions, so you're not stuck in one thing. And as you get older, I think like once you look back, like I wrote all the things that I've done, and I'm like, oh, actually it kind of makes sense. Like I'm a senior editor writer now, and I was an English major, so that totally checks out.
Yeah, I definitely see your college, and you have a more direct path than most people, to be honest.
Maybe it didn't feel like that. It felt really hopeless. So, and
That's interesting.
I don't know. And I think, and when I interview people and I talk to them, like it almost becomes a stereotype. Like ever since she was a child, she dreamed of doing this. Ever since she was a kid, she loved playing with, rearranging her room, and now she's an interior designer program. And, like go back to that rawness of your childhood and think about like, that's who you were
I
before
definitely
all the
think
stuff
there's
that
hints. There's hints in your childhood and your early career of where you're going to wind up. And if you can see those things. But I don't know that it's easy to see those things.
No. And like in high
I mean, you
school,
said you were making magazines,
Mhm. And like I interviewed James Dean's family. I had a crush on James Dean when I was 12, and I convinced my mom to drive to Indiana one summer, and we met his family, and I interviewed them, and I took notes like I was a reporter. And then I met somebody else who also did that. And I was like we're like talking,
Wow.
and it's from the Tall Small. They're like consultants for like, and I never took a class with them, but they talk about talking self-assured and like how to present yourself and that kind of thing, which I need. But I was like, yeah, because it's James Dean thing. And her husband was like, are you kidding? And she was like, I wrote an article about James Dean. And I was like, oh God, this poor
That's
family, like these just teenagers coming decade
just
after
showing
decade.
up, doing all these
It
interviews.
was an
They
act of
might be like,
resistance.
people still care, you know what I mean? People still
Yeah,
care
yeah.
about
And they
James
took the
Dean.
time. Like I knocked on their door, and then they took me out to the barn and
I
showed
can't
me
believe you got your mom to take you to Indiana for
she
it. That's
did it.
that's an
That was my
impressive
mom.
mom
Yeah.
move.
So that was my mom. But you know, and there's somebody from your life who you look up to, or I hope there is. And if there isn't, go to community college, because you will find your mentors there because they care
Julie's
about
one
you
of
when
them.
it's small. Um,
Honestly, it's funny you say that about my parents because I think my mom being like a rocket scientist was like one of those, I'll never achieve that much. I'll never be that
hmm,
smart, not successful, not whatever. Um, because she just was like the smartest person I knew. And you literally could ask her any question and she knew the answer, and it was weird. And I'd be mad. I'd be like, what the hell? Why does she know this too? The most random things. She read the dictionary front to back. So and she literally remember, there's not a word you can throw at her. But she also learned Latin, which is the root of everything. So
yes,
even if
yep.
she didn't remember her dictionary, this is
Hmm.
just a really smart person. And I always thought, I don't know how to be that successful, and I can't be like these kids who get straight A's because I didn't get straight A's. I was like the C's get degrees person, and
I was called
um,
a less than part-time student by one of my math teachers. She's like, we can't hand back the test because Julie, who's a less than a part-time student here, and it was a magnet school that I got in as a neighborhood kid. So I was just not, I was a fish
well, and
dying on the side of the pool.
you're a lot like me. I suspect we're both kind of ADHD, and I think that school and this for anyone who is still watching that has like who's in school in any capacity, school is not built for 50% of the population. If you can white knuckle your way through it and get your degrees, but I would not assume that your struggles in school are going to lead to struggles in your career. And I would not assume that people who don't struggle in school are going to just have a flawless and perfect career.
Mhm.
I definitely think my career has been better than my education in terms of my trajectory and my confidence and the space I fit into. I feel like, if you're skipping school, if you're anything like me, it's because it's hard to sit in that space and
Yeah.
stay in that box
Mhm.
essentially and live in that world where you have to do exactly what you're told, exactly the way you're told. And and you want to go out and create the things. Like you said, you want the vaguest instructions possible because you want to just create whatever this, you know,
Yeah.
thing is that you're working on, this project, and that you can be trusted to be the kind of person who will create the vision behind it, who will put the meat into it, and and make something out of nothing. And people, not so many people can't actually do that, and so many people who do well in school can't actually do that, and they need to be told what to do, and point for point for point for point. So it's definitely a certain skill set that you have, being just regardless of how you apply it, being able to go and run with something and make it your own,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
And I also think, like, I noticed, I could talk to you forever, so I'll make it quick. But I've noticed that, like, our like general contractors, I was like, they have ADD, like, because it's like this, like, it's impossible to get in touch with them. But then once they're in your house, they're so focused and they just like get this thing
Boom,
done.
boom,
And
boom.
then if you lose that contact because something else comes up, you can't find them again. And it's like this. And I was like, oh, they just need this constant turnover. So recognize that in yourself. If you like projects, you don't want to manage people, or you want to do both, whatever. But if you need constant stimulation and new things to learn or do and move your body, like, go for it. Like,
I'm an idea person. I can
Mhm.
idea my way to anything. It's the whole back end, all the details after the idea is
Mhm.
executed, that I suffer through. And I've always said, like, if I can hire someone to do that for me, I'll be successful. And I've gotten to that point for the most part. Um, but it definitely is one of those things where,
And we don't have to succeed alone either. Like, I just read that book Surrounded by Idiots, and it was talking about the disc colors. And like, I'm a red, so I probably would do well with a yellow if I wanted my own business, so that they could get out there and do the sales and do the the charming stuff. And then I can go back there and get all, turn all the wheels and just really get everything done and in order. And then they can hand it off. Like,
I'm not
also
good
as a
with the
writer, you're
charming
not
stuff.
going to get a lot of glory because there are no bylines where I am too. So that's kind of like,
There's no
but
bylines for what?
yeah, we don't have bylines like when we write
Yeah.
something. So a lot of the things I write just go towards the cause, and that's my job. But
Yeah.
um, so if that's important to you,
Like having the notoriety of your name being on it versus just being the contributor at a college.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is fine too. So I don't know. I feel like you can also get that recognition and creativity in your own life, like I do with like websites and like content. I don't just do websites. Like, it sounds like I read somebody said, stop calling yourself a web designer because it sounds like you're saying you're a webmaster. Like, that's so outdated. And people can just go on, you can go on Canva now and create a website, but it might
It's
lack
not the same.
like the architecture behind it, the thought behind it, that whatchamacallit, sorry, my dog is distracting me. The user experience, which
Hmm.
also I'm
User
interested in it all
experience.
and bring it all together. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, so just keep, and I say keep, if I don't know, it's my personality, but I am constantly attending webinars. I know all about like no-click content and moving beyond SEO into GEO. And like, then I'm like, oh, I'm curious about instructional design, and then I'll learn about that. Or like, the
What is
banger that I'm
the
reading right
position
now is
like?
this,
How people learn. You're so
just,
funny.
yeah. So I'm curious about so many things. So
Well,
go in
and
an
I mean,
environment where you can learn.
yeah, I think that's really important too, is always feeling like your interest and curiosity and passions are being fed by your job. And I think when that stops happening, you're looking for a new job, or, you know, maybe you're just doing it in it for a paycheck at some point, but it's not fulfilling anymore.
Do I dream
So
of doing spreadsheets all day? Yes. And like, if it was a job that paid really well, and I'm like, I could maybe do that. But then,
uh,
you wonder, what it's like.
I don't think you'd be happy
Yeah.
doing spreadsheets all day. And I think that you wound up in a job that's perfect for you because it has a variety of
Yeah.
visual,
Mhm.
written, working with people, collaborating, supporting the students. I think that's kind of neat. And it's kind of funny because, going back to where you started, a lot of your sort of more menial jobs, like the restaurant one, really led to that. being able to do those things for them and build those skills. So,
Mhm.
um,
And asking to do it, you know?
yeah. Well, and I think that's a big one is putting yourself out there, and it kind of nobody thinks when they go and wait tables that they're going to gain a skill that's going to be their career 20 years later, but
Mhm.
here
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah, you're right.
So I'm going to let you go because I know we've been talking for a
Yeah.
while and you're probably exhausted. But thank you so much. I'm going to end the recording and then I'll just say goodbye to you.
All right. It was good
All right.
talking to you.